Oh, Sam, what did you think of The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway?
Oh, that's a pretty heavy topic, isn't it?
Yeah, they don't really treat animals that great, huh? Imagine if instead of fighting bulls, they would be fighting cats. So this is what the New York Times had to say about this book novel that was published in 1926, if I'm not mistaken. It says an absorbing, beautifully and tenderly absurd, heartbreaking narrative. No amount of analysis can convey the quality of The Sun Also Rises. Truly gripping story, told in a lean, hard, athletic narrative prose. Magnificent writing filled with organic action that gives a compelling picture of the character. I think it couldn't have been written today with all the visual um, cues. So this is first I'll introduce you to the epigraph. This is what writers use. This is like my favorite part of writing. Like you have a quote that sums up the ideas. So the most major one is by Gertrude Stein. Gertrude Stein was a very important figure in the expatriates who filled Paris, all the Americans who filled Paris in attempt of writing, the British and American expatriates. Gertrude Stein was a very important figure in Paris, and she said, "You are all a lost generation," and this is what it's all about. And this is a quote from the Bible from Ecclesiastes. Yeah, the translation of the Bible makes it difficult. Ecclesiastes, which is in Hebrew Kohelet, the book written by King Solomon. And it says, "One generation passes away, and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goes down, and heads to the place where he rose. The wind goeth towards the south, and turneth about unto the north. It rolleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again." Interesting. I like that quote. So it's divided into three books, and what I want to talk about is the structure. So we have here a few characters. For me, it's like a drama. It's really a novel. The narrator, it's narrated in, we have a narrator, and the first sentence is really important. So it's made up of three books. Book one, book two, book three is very short. And you can read the main action, like the big drama starts, I circled the page, actually starts like the big, it's not one of those novels that has, these days people don't have an attention span that can take it, but you have to read like about, let's see, you have to read about 160 pages until you get into the action. I've circled the page where 187, that's when everything starts. So, and I made notes from the New York Times article about how this book was created. We see a book, but we don't realize all the work that goes into editing it and rewriting. So Robert Cohn was once middleweight boxing champion of Princeton. Do not think that I'm very much impressed by that as a boxing title, but it meant a lot to Cohn. He cared nothing for boxing. In fact, he disliked it, but he learned it painfully and thoroughly to counteract the feeling of inferiority and shyness he had felt on being treated as a Jew at Princeton. There was a certain inner comfort in knowing he could knock down anybody who was snooty to him. Although being very shy and a thoroughly nice boy, he never fought except in the gym. So this is an important sentence. So we have the narrator, Jake, right? His name is Jake Barnes, the narrator. And then we have one woman, Brett, that several men love her. You have Mike, who she's going to marry. She's getting a divorce. She's a lady. She was married to an aristocrat. She's British. She's marrying a Scotsman called Mike. And then there's Bill, I think he's an American. And then there's Jake Barnes. He's a writer. He's a reporter, much like Ernest Hemingway. So it's actually based on his life. So originally he wanted to call it Fiesta, a novel. And The Sun Also Rises is a very intriguing title. It has a lot of when you see The Sun Also Rises, it's a good title because it makes you think, what is this all about? So there is in Boston, in the JFK Library, manuscripts that from Ernest Hemingway's manuscripts that they found, and they've been altered. And F. Scott Fitzgerald, the great writer, made comments about how to write. So his writing process is very different from the novel. And what he strived for is greater simplicity. Early drafts of the novel began in the middle of the story, at the bullfight. So we have at the beginning Paris, and this is like a lot of people. This novel was published 1926. Then people lost interest in the novel, 1960s. Nobody was interested in it. And then it made a comeback with the millennials, 2000, because all of a sudden you realize this is a classic novel, that it has very important messages about a lost generation. So it has to so it's expatriates in Paris. They drink a lot, dance a lot, and we're introduced to the characters. A long introduction. Then they make sort of a pilgrimage, but a secular pilgrimage to Spain. There are several pilgrimages. I know from Switzerland there's one called St. Jacob. People go walk it. They walk all the way to Spain. In Europe you could just walk from one country to another. And this is like a sort of pilgrimage. And we're introduced to people that they live off. They have all sorts of financial means. The writers are reporters, and they drink a lot. Like everything. I'm introduced to so many ways of drinking. Types of drinks. I don't drink at all. So, and a lot of anti-Semitic comments. So I really am. What is Robert Cohn on about? It's about a writer trying to figure out where his voice fits in among those of his characters. And he says, in life, people are not conscious of these special moments that novelists build their whole structures on. Most people are unconscious. This is the idea. You have to figure them out for yourself through their actions. So all the action starts at page 100. So the bullfight, it's, I believe it was a week of fiesta, dancing, drinking. People from all over came. And this group of expatriates, the Scotsman Mike, his fiancée, that Robert Cohn had an affair with in St. Sebastian. And it's sort of like there's a circle, they go around in circles. So Robert Cohn and this woman, Brad, they go off to have an affair. There's a lot of sexual freedom. It's 1926. It's after World War I, and these people were in the war. So there's a lot of wounds, and the writer had suffered in the war. And so I think the Jewish point is not that important as what takes place is, I think the bullfight is very, very, it's so cruel. I cannot even begin. I'm a vegetarian, so those bullfight scenes, how they plunge the knife into the bulls, and the horses, and first they tell Brett, don't look, and she, it tells a lot about a person. And Robert Kahn, the fighter, he almost vomits. He's very sensitive, actually. So you can see how people react to the bullfights. And it says a lot about a person, how they react to bullfights. And the way they cut off the ear of the bull afterwards. Oh, it's just horrible. Because animals are so much like humans. We have the same body parts. We have ears, we have eyes, we have emotions. And yet, the way human beings treat animals says a lot about them. Such a cruel, cruel, cruel culture. By the way, I heard they also hunt down dogs. Very cruel. And the way they celebrate this bullfighting, it's actually in Spanish bullfight. It's not bullfight, but it's something else. I have a line that's so if you aficionados is one who is passionate about bullfights. And Pedro Romero is the bullfighter, 19-year-old guy, named after an 18th century bullfighter. And he's a beautiful man. He's like an ideal character. And the entire novel, The Pilgrimage with Jake and the others from the Lost Generation, it's around a young idealized bullfighter. He stresses Romero's sense of his craft, his art, separated from his personality. It exists in technique, tradition, and passion, not ego. His idealized character. Everything starts from page 132, actually. And it's just really violence. And this violence, there's also the human beings, like Mike is constantly attacking Robert Cohn, the Jew, and saying horrible comments about Jews. And well, nobody intervenes. Nobody intervenes. And it's interesting. This novel was written in 1926. When you read it later, after the Holocaust, it's just so poignant for me. Even though I think the Jew is it's not about, there's nothing about anti-Semitism, but it just shows you the cruelty of human beings and how they can attack. And the bulls, everything that's vulnerable can be attacked. And the bulls are just, they think, oh, they're dumb animals, and they know how to manipulate them. And they make a whole ceremony. It reminds me of the way they used to have the Roman Empire. They used to have these, didn't they throw the Christians into the lions or something? And I don't know, it's just, I didn't research it, but it's just really a very low point of history. And I think it's true that the world used to be a lot more violent. Forget being vegetarian then. So, it's about a group of lost generation expats trying to find themselves, failing. And the end is really, this is like Casablanca. I want to see the film tonight. It's supposed to be really good with iconic Hollywood types. So at the end, I'm going to be spoiler alert. Brett goes off with the 19-year-old bullfighter. And then she writes him a telegram. I love the telegrams. Could you come? Hotel Montana, Madrid. I'm rather in trouble. Brat. Sorry, her name is Brat, if I didn't say it. She's 34. She's like a divorce or getting a divorce. She's supposed to marry Mike. This is the unrequited love. She loves him, but they don't really sleep with each other. It's not a physical love. It's like a friendship. So she said, let's not talk about it. Let's never talk about it. And then she talks about it. Let's ever talk about it. Please don't let's ever talk about it. And I don't know if I should do spoiler alert, but and there's a line here. It says, it makes one feel rather good deciding not to be a bitch. Yes, it's sort of what we have instead of God. Some people have God, I said, quite a lot. He never worked very well with me, she says. Should we have another martini? So this is like a drinking feast. And I think alcohol is not very good. But I guess they drank a lot. And let's not forget, in America, it was prohibition time. They were not allowed to drink. So, and it's the taboo. You can't drink in America, right? There was like a prohibition on alcohol. And then in Europe, and let's not forget, there's like a culture of drinking. Yes, I said. Wait, Brett was smoking. You like to eat, don't you? She said. Yes, I said. I like to do a lot of things. What do you like to do? She says this after the whole novel. It's all about her, this narcissistic personality. Oh, I said, I like to do a lot of things. Don't you want a dessert? You asked me that once, Brett said. Yes, I said. So I did. Let's have another bottle of Rioja Alta. It's very good. So he's drinking, and they're eating a roast young suckling pig. You know what a suckling pig? That means it's a baby pig who's suckling, and they're eating it. I think that is the lowest point a human being can sink, is eating a baby animal and then killing a bull. We take the cows and we use them. I wrote actually a song for the Vegetarian Society in Israel. No, The Front, it's called. It's called The Front. The Front of Liberating Animals. And we had like a picnic a while ago, and I just improvised a song on a guitar. I took a guitar and I wrote about how how we abuse the cows. In India, in contrast, it's considered a holy animal. And then in the West, they make steaks, milk. In US especially, everybody drinks milk, even though, milk is not good for human beings. It's meant for baby cows. And there's the steaks. Sorry, I have to digress, but it's very important. And then we take the bull, and in Spain, they make a whole ceremony and tradition of killing and murdering this animal in front of cheering crowds in such a disgusting way. The way they put this sword, a helpless animal, and they just manipulate it because they use the human brain to kill. And I think actually the best way you can convince people to be vegetarian and pacifist is reading Hemingway. So let's finish with the end. Oh, Jake, Brett said, that's the woman, we could have had such a damn good time together. Ahead was a mounted policeman in khaki directing traffic. He raised his baton. The car slowed suddenly, pressing Brett against me. Yes, I said. Isn't it pretty to think so? I think it's exactly what I concluded in my long life, few decades, that when we reach a goal, it means nothing, but that dream, that wish that doesn't get fulfilled, it is a driving force. People that are searching for the Holy Grail, people that are going on a pilgrimage, people that are in search of something. Once they reach the goal, it's not really